I'm sure Tom will join us shortly. Ah, testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, I think we are live. Welcome to Datocracy in June 2025. The AI overlords have not quite taken us over, although we've got our underlords like Fathom AI hanging out. And send a reminder, so I think Tom will be seeing us. Here we go. Hello, Tom. Hey, you seem much more clean shaven than I recall.
Oh, me?
Correct. My wife
Summer
did
look?
me after I tried to.
You muted. Your summer home? You're muted. We lost your audio.
Sorry. Welcome to the summer cabin, Oslo Fjord. Yeah.
Well, summer cabin, summer face.
Yeah.
Anything new with the Datocracy club or
No,
party?
I have. Yeah. Right. No. I'm waiting to hear back from the party leader, and I let her know that I wasn't going to pressure her. I'm sure she's in the middle of. It's the middle of the election now, actually.
When does the election itself take place?
Well, it's in September, but so there are, like 8 weeks left, and then elections. So. And she's putting out candidates in all the counties.
Wow. So they're fully national, they're a nationwide
That's right,
party?
fully national. Yeah, it's like
Wow.
all the states.
Do you think
But
that they have
you know, if they get really lucky, they'll get somebody in parliament.
okay.
But but they know it's a long haul. I mean, there's a history of parties starting up, and they don't get much the first few decades, and then maybe they get lucky with a
Wow,
good leader.
that's a long haul. So
Yeah,
it's a county by county thing. So you don't get like
that's right.
proportional representation. So you have to actually get critical mass in some county in order to,
Something like that. Something like
yeah.
that. Yeah. Mm. And if you don't get above, I think it's 4.5% of the vote, if you're under 4.5%, you lose a lot of representation in the parliament, in the Senate.
Hmm.
So they're trying to make sure you don't have too many extremely small parties.
Yeah, that causes other problems. I think that's what
So
Israel.
the Green Party, which I've they were like 4.3, and the border's 4.5. So that
Wow.
hurt them a whole period. They had 3 representatives in there, one of whom I knew as a child. I used to work with his father, so it's a small country. You know everybody. We still know him.
Wow. Nice.
But I'm gonna vote for the Generation Party because they're gonna do Datocracy.
All right. Great. So,
I also just half joking and totally seriously, I decided to write a new book today about, how to design organizations. And I pulled a little trick. I have a book I just written on product engineering,
mhm.
and it's 300 pages, very deep, very good. And then I copied it. No, what is it? I replaced all the words product with the word organization. And suddenly I actually had a whole new book about how to design organization, because my principles, whether you use them on products or organization, doesn't matter. It's the same principles.
Really?
But
No.
so I actually have a complete book, but I'm going through it, and like I'm using AI to generate some more organizational oriented values and tables and things like that.
So let's
So I'm
take a
tuning
moment
it a
on
bit, but
this. Yeah, because
yeah.
one would think that uh, a user mostly consumes a product, but I would think that a member produces the organization. So it feels asymmetric to me.
Oh, well, from my point of view, products have qualities and costs, and organizations have qualities and costs. So
So this is more
there's
like
at that level,
architecting a
there's
product versus architecting an organization, maybe. Is that
sorry, I didn't get the whole question.
so in the sense that this is how to architect a product or
Yes,
architect an
yeah,
organization? Is
but
that
it's my standard language. You start with your stakeholders and find out the values, then you find out how to design it, then you uh, chop them up into small designs, and you start evolving and delivering. You focus on delivering values, and at the level, whether it's a product or an organization, doesn't matter. You're still busy delivering values. So the mechanics of the process are essentially the same. Or put it another way, my language works on anything, even datocracy.
right? So think about the framing of it is that you still have producers and consumers, but they're just different stakeholders. So you have people developing the product and developing the organization,
Correct.
and
That's right.
people using the product and using the organization. So the
That's
external
that's right.
consumers of the organization can count like the use of the product. Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
interesting.
that's about it. You have a different set of stakeholders that have a different set of values, but you still have I still have to teach people to think about stakeholders and values at all. I mean, they
Mm,
dive right in and start talking about the strategies for making a good organization, like teamwork. And they've skipped all the early steps of, the 20 critical stakeholders with 20 critical values are gone. And that what that means is, since they're critical, they're going to trip you up and make things go badly, and you'll fail. You're doomed.
yes.
It, anyway,
Nope, we just lost
that's
Ernest. I don't
that's
know
what
if
I that's
we
what I did. That's what I
that's what
did
you did
today.
this one. Well, you're a few hours ahead of us, so I guess we'll give you a little
Yeah.
credit for that. So, all
Yeah.
right. Ernest wrote a manifesto in the last, or at least a document, which is always a exciting thing. You want to go ahead and pull it up on the screen, Ernest, and we'll start with that. See how far we get. I know we have it in email as well under the title Mark Zuckerberg, which is interesting. Is the
Yeah,
uh,
I'll be
so there
okay.
was the rant about Mark Zuckerberg, and then there was also a document you attached, right?
Y- Yeah,
New knowledge system. Here we go. Yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
do you both have the document?
Yeah.
I do.
Because
You can't
I'm
find it,
Right
I
in
can
front of
share it.
me.
It's pretty short.
My goal today in this text, it says.
yeah, okay, yeah, let's yeah,
Want
can
me to
I
share it?
yeah, you can do that, please.
Yeah.
Let
Okay.
me,
Put
let
mine
me
away.
let me get a little bit larger font there for us older folks.
Yeah, so
I can enlarge at will from here,
There we
just
go.
by
Okay, this is
yeah.
too weird.
okay,
Oh,
good.
there we go. You see it okay?
Yep.
Yeah, well, okay.
All
So
right. So short enough, you want to just read the whole thing?
read the whole thing?
Oh,
Or at least
okay.
cover the
Yeah,
high
it gives me a
points.
chance to get into it.
I'll read it for you if
Mm.
you want.
Okay.
My goal today in this text is to share with you some thoughts to get people the idea of creating a separate knowledge system, one that has absolutely nothing to do with corporation governments and, most important, AI. Think about it as the voice histories that many people have used and continue to use to share their culture and history with future generations. Our current digital systems are no substitute for those practices. They're controlled by money-hungry assholes and can be easily used against people. AI is just the latest wool installation technology to cover society's eyes, which oligarchs use to dominate, control, misguide, and exploit human beings. This is a quote from some random person on
Well,
YouTube.
not so random. This is about the guy who killed that politician and her husband and tried to kill another politician and his wife and stop by somebody else's
Right.
house.
In Minnesota.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
the quote is to summarize the quote is about these people or this person who was a religious nut that started in some school and got, I don't know, he went even to Africa and talked to people about Hamas people saying hate violence is never the answer. But then, a few years later, it turns out and kills these people because of mainly abortion. He was opposed to abortion, and he saw these Democrats as facilitating that. But
He's against killing babies, but in favor of killing adults, apparently.
exactly. So yeah.
And
So
what was the connection between that and AI?
no, the video is it's not AI. It's a connection between uh two people's core values. He had some, and if you don't know, if you tell him, hey, I'm uh, an abortion provider, you might be killed the next day just because
Right.
you don't know what his thoughts are, you don't know what his motivations are, but just that difference can determine whether you live or die. Uh, so so yeah, I touched more on that ahead in the document if you want to keep going.
Oh, sorry, I forgot there was more of the document. There we go. I totally forgot how long this was. Okay, this is probably too long for me to read the whole thing.
Oh,
Maybe
oh,
there's only two.
yeah, we can focus on the pots and bubbles part.
Okay.
We have,
Uh,
you don't have to read. I can just talk about it.
yeah, once you start talking through it, yeah.
Yeah, we have talked about this for years, right? You remember we mentioned pots
hmm
and all those things.
hmm
So what this is, I wanted to write and you told me years ago that maybe we could write a little story that showing
hmm
the kind of world that we talked about, like
hmm
Tom did. But that takes time, and I'm not a novelist. I started, and this is kind of what it is, but anyway, I talk about, yeah, I mentioned that you have neighbors,
hmm
people who live next to you. Uh, in this future, you don't get into discussions. You only say hi and bye and nice garden, but you can't get into deep discussions because that, like you can turn up dead the next day. Or somebody just doesn't agree with what you think.
Right.
And
Right. Or you get fired or
oh
deplatformed or whatever. Yeah. Right.
yes, so many things can happen when people are not interested in learning about the other. They just think that I am the soldier of whatever, and if anybody who doesn't think like me is my enemy. So this is what that guy had in his brain.
Right. I mean, certainly there's this is sometimes called the loss of the public sphere or the civil commons.
Mm,
Right. Is that and to be fair, there used to the technical term for this is the Overton window, the things that are safe to talk about. And it used to be there was a very clear mainstream Overton window, which was kind of what you could talk about in network TV, and everything outside of that you really couldn't talk about anywhere,
hmm
except maybe Greenwich Village or religious communes. And now with the internet, we have splintering and radicalization of the bubbles, and we have a lot more of them. And what I'm hearing you say here, this is like, this is not a bug, this is a feature, because you do need to have a small group of people that share your values that you can have honest conversations with.
Correct. But you should be able to create this in your terms, not
hmm
Facebook's terms, not in uh, uh, anybody else, any corporation's terms, because
Mhm.
their terms override yours. The contracts that you agree to by just clicking, they are written on their side, not your side. So,
Okay. All right.
you
I think we understand that you have a private bubble. Let's go on to the idea of the public bubble here. I'm
oh
curious
yeah,
about.
like in this pod thing that we talked about, you have your really private bubble that you can put in there people with whom, you don't have to explain your worldview because you share it or they understand it. Then you also have a public bubble, which is where you put in, new acquaintances, new people that you don't know yet, but you're trying to, get to know, with, they're there. So when it comes to discussions, the things are different. Um, they are, more nebulous, but still only human beings in there, no corporations, no AI, so that you trust that you're speaking to human beings. And then, yeah, the ID stuff, that's other uh, issues
Okay,
that,
so let's be more clear. The is let's call this almost your address book. These are people you know,
yeah.
in a sense, right? That you have a direct connection to.
And some of them you might invite to your, I don't know, your kitchen, right?
Yeah.
But others you might say, hey, stay in the living room, please. And you go out there, you give them food, but they are not going to be in your kitchen. You are not going to be open
Yeah.
with them. But they're there and they can see some of your stuff. So you have levels of intimacy.
Disclosure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Controlled by you. No corporation, nobody else. Just you define.
Right. This is a bit like the Urbit model, I think, where you have your own personal space, or the activity pods, or the solid pods
Correct.
was the idea from
All
Tim
about that.
Berners-Lee.
Yeah.
Right. So okay, right, we got that. And just so I'm clear, when you're talking about when you connect to the internet, I think you mean connect to the web, right?
Well,
Because I mean, you don't distrust TCP/IP yet, I don't think.
eh, well, what is the difference between the web and the internet?
Oh, huge difference. TCP is a low-level protocol
No, I know
that
that, but if you
okay,
ask,
but the web is because so no. As far as I can tell, maybe you can disagree with me, the low-level internet protocols are still reasonably decentralized and not subject to much censorship. Once you start getting to HTTP websites and Cloudflare and actual destinations that people engage with through web browsers, that's where you have a huge amount of corporate control and censorship in platforms.
okay,
Email, I think, is still pretty I mean, it's not very secure, but it is at least not horribly controlled the way the web is.
yeah, I meant the question more like if you ask a teenager or a 20-year-old, what would they think between the web is not us
Well,
tech.
I understand, but there's a difference between I'm trying to think what you're exactly railing against. So I think it's good to be precise,
Okay,
right? And when you say a corporation controlled network, I think of the web as
that's right.
experienced by most people. There's a lot of corporate control over different aspects of it in a way that I don't think and it's also important, like, are we trying to, build everything around tin cans and spaghetti wire, or can we imagine building something on top of TCP/IP?
Uh, well, I guess the latter is the closest, but I'm more like what is it? Internet, is it the IPFS? Is it?
IPFS, yeah, I mean, on top of IP, on top of Internet Protocol,
Yes,
right?
that,
Literally, it's like, okay, yes, so right, yes, okay. Just to clear the what you're talking about, I think.
yeah. So I guess I'm talking about you. I'm talking about the web, like the things that Google controls and Facebook controls. The fact that
Yeah, sure.
Google
Okay,
has
we'll,
so
we'll,
many.
we'll go with the we'll go with
Yeah,
we'll go with the web as a proxy for that.
yeah.
Um, um,
Mhm. So
I
in
mean, I'm just always curious. Are you actually in a world where you hear more people being killed over things like AI than like gang violence or drug violence or war.
Well, I'm not doing the comparison. I'm just looking at the new stuff, like these people who are using ChatGPT and they're falling in love with it. Some of them think that that it is God. Some of them say, "Hey, it's because of this change that OpenAI did to ChatGPT, saying, yeah, in this version 4, we're going to make it so that the ChatGPT tells people what they want to hear and tells people that they want to make people feel good, so that they come back to it. They become addicted to it. It tells them what they want to hear, and some admin said, "Oh yeah, we kind of overdid it," and that's where we're getting real people are thinking that ChatGPT is a god. To me, that is just it shows the uh, I,
Well, let's go with the idea that AI is addictive, because I
oh
think
yeah,
that's arguably a subset of that,
yeah.
right? Although uh, there's some interesting questions there, but let me just go to the rest of the article before I ask too many questions. I'm curious about this phrase here. Um, you left that life long ago because you wanted to ensure that what you read, saw, and heard are as close to reality as possible.
Yes.
I mean, when I hear that, I think of the guy living in the woods so that he's as close to nature as possible.
Mhm.
I don't think that's what you mean. I'm curious what you do mean by that.
Well, yeah, we can philosophize about what reality is. Reality.
But does that mean MSNBC? Does that mean only your so close
No,
circle
no,
of
no.
friends? I mean,
Well,
what is reality?
I mean, remember the AI slop John Oliver episode that I shared with you, that
Yeah, I didn't actually watch that, but
oh well,
I mean, yeah, I mean, to me, the line between AI generated reality and human generated Fox News reality, I personally would prefer the AI reality to that.
well,
Uh,
yeah, but staying in the AI side, um, it touches on. Well, I'll give you one example. A woman who likes Pinterest, she says, "Oh, I love Pinterest because I can see some images." But lately, it's only AI. All the images are AI, and she's upset because she doesn't get any real images. She just get all this AI stuff. Um, so
right. So by the way, this is the exact same problem that happened with the internet and then the web, is that uh, when it gets cheaper to produce content. I mean, and don't forget, it's not like the AI is taking over the world and posting on Pinterest. It's people using AI to create lots and lots of AI art and spamming Pinterest with it,
well,
right?
yeah, but then
Okay, and
Zuckerberg,
so one person's and if you're old enough to remember when the Apple Macintosh came out with the original like 64 fonts, and people
yeah.
started putting posters up everywhere with Comic Sans,
Mhm.
and all the people who were fans of Topocracy were just horrified.
Mhm.
And it really was ugly when people using. I mean, I went through this phase too of using 14 different fonts in the same document because it was so easy to do something stupid, and human beings, being human beings, will do more stupid stuff, right?
Yes,
And AI makes it easier than ever to be stupid. I don't disagree with that, but it is still right now people doing stupid things with AI. The AI is
well,
not. It just makes it easier, and just like the web encouraged people to do all sorts of stupid stuff. You didn't have, and cell phone photos enable people to do all sorts of stupid things. Um, so
but
right? So there's difference between um, AI assisted stupidity and maybe AI feedback loops which encourage or maybe foment stupidity.
But the problem is that, we now have realistic AI. We have people creating videos that look very real to people, and they believe that it's real. Like
Yep.
some of
Right. We went through the same thing with Photoshop in the 90s, right? Is
well,
that
but
you could,
yeah, but this is
right?
like people faking news, and then politicians using those fake videos to justify their positions. And then when confronted, hey, politician, this thing that you thought it was real that touched your heart is fake, is AI. And then they switch. Then they say, oh, well, it's a tool for me to.
Right, but I mean, like, last I checked, politicians were doing this well before AI, right? As they take some random news rumor they heard or whatever, make a big deal about it, and then they say, and they say, well, the facts are different. Well, I don't care. Like, I mean, like I said, AI makes all these problems worse. I guarantee, just like every other, every other technological innovation, the printing press, newspapers, radio, television, you know the internet, like all these technologies make it easier to be stupid. The flip side is that only the rich and powerful don't have as much of a monopoly on being stupid.
Yeah, and they're the ones who control it. And
But sorry, you're gonna have a hard time convincing me that the rich and the powerful have more influence over what we see and hear and think than in the golden age of the 1950s, before all this technology.
When people live in meta platforms controlled by Zuckerberg,
As
and
opposed to 3 TV networks controlled by the government.
well, yeah, all the same. When
Okay, but let's be, I'm clear about your claim. To say that it's worse than in the 1950s, when there were only 3 TV networks that had government license, and then the rich and powerful, you're saying they have more control over us than they did back then? I have a hard time believing that. I can believe it's messier, but
when people start just taking, some people get their news from Fox News, and that colors their viewpoint. They base all the stuff, all their thinking on that. Some people are living on Facebook, and Zuckerberg is happy to say, yeah, we help you create.
But is that a
images.
better or worse world when everyone got all their news from one of 3 networks?
I think it's worse when Zuckerberg and friends have so much control over the images that people see, and the fact that they are proud that they can create AI
But do you think it is? I want to get you on the record about this. Is a world where a number of random corporations, other than the 3 networks which we beholden to the federal government, have so much influence over what people see, hear, and think? Do you think that's a better world for information or a worse world?
Both suck because
Okay,
both
good. So okay, good. So the world sucks in a different way than it did in the 1950s.
Well, yeah.
Okay, right. So, but let's talk about, but this is the interesting point, though, is that in this world, you and I, the 3 of us, can get on the internet, create this video on YouTube, right? Using Zoom to corporate Zoom is more of a creation tool. YouTube is at least a little bit more neutral, even if the algorithm is biased. And I have the opportunity to say, like, hey, what the government is doing, what the corporations are doing, they're wrong. And we have at least the opportunity to find a market for these things and tell other people, the way we found Tom, in a way that was inconceivable in the 1950s or even the 1970s, right? And, as much as I can find reasons to hate Google, the fact that Google built this platform, subsidized this platform for years, and rules it with a relatively light hand, allows us to do things that we could never have done in the era of broadcast TV. And I don't want to ignore that fact.
That's great. And I think people now with the technology, people can build their own platforms that do the same functionality, but that they control completely. It's not
Right.
it's not
So
like
I think
go ahead.
Okay, so I think there's a couple of different dynamics going on here. Did you finish the document? I don't know if I stopped sharing it by accident.
Yeah, I think you did.
Let me.
I know I stopped it because I wanted to brag about my multiple typefaces from Mac 1985.
You want to? You have to. Okay. Did you share that? Are you done? Should we go back?
I shared it, but I also sent it on messages to you both.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
I published it
Let me just go and share
Yeah.
that on the screen because that's such a great visual. We should make that our the
There you go.
keynote for this. Uh, and that was a deliberate spoof of the different eras. You weren't like
No, that was no spoof. That was what I really did and published in
in those.
Association for Computing Machinery Journal.
Okay, because you could, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And now looking back, aside from typography, it was thinking that is not obsolete and captures the evolutionary ideas very well today. So I'm
yeah.
proud of it. So
All right. Let's move on to the next page of the document because I think that's a good segue in there about the text and knowledge.
Yes, that's yeah. So text analogies and analogy. Text, what we have now is a bunch of text that these AI systems read, and process, and then they try to reverse engineer knowledge from text. Text is just some dumb characters that many people write. These systems consume it all, and then they try to make predictions and all that stuff.
Or stochastic parrots and all that, right?
We have,
When you say this is what human beings do with the text they read, I think you're being a little generous to human beings. A lot of people I know spit out words without having any idea what they actually mean. But again, that is Tom's person life, is to force people to try and define their terms precisely. The
and
question I always have is, that always feels a bit circular, because if you're defining words in terms of other words, you're sort of hoping that the ground truth words are clear enough that you don't get stuck. And I guess that's where you have to ground them in metrics and some sort of oracle or measurement system in order for them to really have meaning, right? Is that unfair, Tom?
in some of my books, for example, Simple Book, and I'll dig it out and send it, I define something like simplicity with, say, 20 words, and then I define all of the 20 words.
With
I'm
another
quite
20
fanatic.
words?
In other words, I'm fanatic on defining the point where surely nobody can possibly misunderstand. But I'll give you a sample of it. Go on.
I bet you I could find a way to misunderstand it. Well, I think the point is that if you don't know English, that's not going to help you, right? Is that you have to at least have some shared understanding of words that are hopefully non-controversial and non-ambiguous, and that the person knows.
Actually, the translation ability of the AI system is so good that I don't think it matters. I think translation to any arbitrary language like Ukrainian would work out. I could trial translate it to languages I'm fluent in.
I think it depends a lot on the domain you are talking about, right? Because I think that's and I think that's one of these important things is that I've occasionally had to invent a new word because I had a concept that I cared about that the existing words were deeply misleading. And what I found is that defining the word for myself was useful, but it only made sense to other people when they see how I use it in practical context. And this is the idea that words, it's not my favorite, and it's not the best. I'm not entirely happy with this term, but it captures a concept very profound, which is that words are crystallized emotions, or maybe crystallized experiences. We have an experience and we say that was fun, right? Or that was love, or that really worked. And like when I first heard the phrase piece of work, I did not know what that meant. And it was, and even the definitions I heard were not terribly, but after someone said, oh, like she is a piece of work, I finally understood what they meant because I knew who they were and the relation they had to that manager. And I understood, not just knew what the word meant. And I think a lot of the important words, especially when we move from relatively well-defined places like business to somewhat more emotion-laden spaces like politics, there is an experiential aspect to understanding things which goes beyond words.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, a long way of saying, I find a lot of people throw words around without necessarily having a deep understanding of the value inherent in the words they're trying to use, much like AI does, right? AI has no skin in the game.
Yeah.
They have no lived experience, at least at this point in time. One can imagine alternate futures where they do, but that's a separate discussion. But I mean, this is, and what's interesting to me about this, Ernest, is this feels like the smart documents conversation that we
Yes.
started with at the very beginning of Datocracy. And you have yet to convince me that you can actually create any document that we can use that satisfies these things. And I think that a great first place to start would be with with a Rageocracy. Like, could you come up with a very simple document or manifesto or something that you could share with the Rageocracy list and say, hey, this is what we stand for. Do you agree?
Well, yeah. The problem is that document couldn't be what I'm envisioning. What I'm envisioning is, we talk about living documents. We talk about navigating information. I'm talking about you being able, and I write in that text, you being able to you being unable to take things out of context. So you copy this sentence in this knowledge document, and when you paste it somewhere else, it will grab all the context that the writer put in there. And so no one will be able to say, to take that out of context. Oh, you took that out of context. Well,
Right. So basically DRM. I mean, it is kind of the DRM problem of, as the author, I want to create a digital artifact that no one else is able to remix because that's kind of what you're implying, is that I can't just take a screenshot and grab the text.
Well, you can take a screenshot and take a screenshot of the text, but you cannot drag, screenshot is just a photo. But if you drag across the text, you grab all the context.
I don't know if you've checked the Apple's Photos app lately. If you take a screenshot of anything, you can grab all the text from the photo just fine by dragging across it. So that layer of isolation. And my point is that I understand that, but here's the thing: you're worried about people abusing the document, and I understand that concern.
No, I'm
abusing your text.
People misunderstanding the document or using a little snippet of it to make a point that without using the entire context is not good.
Well, the point is, but I'm asking a deeper question. Can you even create a document that anyone can use correctly? Like, even the people who are not trying to use it in context, I don't even know if that's possible.
Well,
you create a single document that with context, unless you've created the right cultural systems around it, the document itself feels really difficult to create.
Yeah, that's what I call it, a new knowledge system. This is new. It has very little to do with our current system. It has to do with actually embedding knowledge in something. It's not
right, but, this is the critical point. This is actually a good segue to the thing I wanted to share with you, which is a rap battle. Which, if I really a rap battle,
okay.
And this is that. What is this is my thesis, that knowledge doesn't actually exist in documents. For all your point, it's just words. The thing that matters is the cultural system that document is embedded in, the process that people went through to create it, and the rituals they have around how they use it. That's my argument, is that there is no version of the Constitution, no matter how hyperlinked or authoritative or smart, that would solve the problems we have. Because all documents, all language depends on, the Federalist Papers, the Revolutionary War, Supreme Court precedents, July 4th memorials. The cultural rituals we have around these things determine what these words mean in practice. And the hard part is creating the right cultural rituals so that people are acting in good faith and punished for acting in bad faith. That's my thesis.
Okay. I counter that with, before you go to your example,
Yeah, sure.
battle, we have to learn to embed as much as possible into those documents, so that, let's say somebody says, "Oh, I'm an originalist. I want to interpret this the way that the writers meant,"
Mhm.
so that people can fake and then
Right. So this is the challenge. Write me a document, however small, like one paragraph, if you want, or even just like one sentence, and show me how you intend that to work. Give me like one sentence of something you care about that you're going to define with enough context that I can understand it. Is that a challenge you could take on?
It will take a long time, because
Even do a single sentence.
it's still, we will have to create a strata of knowledge that you build upon. It takes time, but that's the kind of thing that I'm thinking about. Like, if you
So let's at least try. So see if it's even possible, right? There's got to be at least one sentence that you believe enough to be willing to spend a month trying to define. And Tom would love to spend hours helping you precisely define every word in there. That's what he does for fun.
And I just sent you an example from my productivity book of one sentence where I then take every word in that sentence and define it again. And I'm also standing on the shoulders of giants, my 700-word concept glossary in language.
Right. So he does have a glossary there, and this is the
Yeah, you got it.
right. Productivity is a system performance measure.
Yeah.
Which is helpful if we knew what PS, and V, and C were. S is stakeholders, V is value, C is cost. S is the system. The screen just cut off there. P is performance measure. So,
Well, the point is, I have to define every word in that simple sentence
Mhm.
with a whole lot of other words to begin to remove the ambiguity from people's minds.
Mhm.
right, but there's a secondary thing, which I think you assume, right, is that people, maybe that's not what you're assuming. Maybe that what you're doing by doing this is it's a sense of proof of work. You are showing that these words matter by the time and energy you put into them, so that people
Yeah.
understand that they should take
Good.
these things seriously, right?
Yeah.
There's an emotional weight you put into in the process of encoding it.
I'm trying to remove people's excuses for misunderstanding and wasting time.
Right. It doesn't necessarily mean that they care, but at least if they have to
No.
pay attention.
Well, if they screw about, I just pointed back to this and said, "Did you read that definition?
Wait,
Or did you ignore it?"
how do they know
That's official.
how do they know that they screwed up?
I tell them.
Well,
So at some point we get back to authority, but yes.
but if you're not
By the
there,
way, there's something you're not mentioning, and it's like the elephant in the room, especially considering today's judgment in favor of Trump. It's called Supreme Courts and courts interpreting things,
Oh no,
like the Constitution.
that was my point. Is that and one of the fascinating things about American culture, which is going to be put to the test, is we have this concept of judicial review, which was not itself in the Constitution. It is a cultural institution that evolved over time.
Mhm.
And there's at least a 10% chance on Manifold, last I checked, that the court might issue a ruling that Trump just chooses to ignore. Right? Because it doesn't say in the Constitution that the president has to obey the judges. It's only in our cultural norms where it doesn't. Right? It's just we have this convention when the Supreme Court makes a rule that everyone agrees by it, that judicial review matters. And, this is the problem, is that you can't there's always the meta document, or that's my point is there's always a culture around the document that matters. And I don't know if I can get the font on this good enough to be useful. Let's see. I wonder if I have I may actually have a text version that might be easier to see. Goodness, let me try one more time. Open with text edit. Okay. This is let me try this and see if this works. Are you able to see this? Is that readable? Should I increase the font, Tom?
I can increase it to whatever level I need.
Okay.
I've done so.
Would you be willing to play Turing to my Madison, Tom, and read the
Yeah, okay.
It's a little silly, but not silly or anything else we've done on here, I think, but maybe a little sillier than we've done before. It's a little hard to read with the links in there, but I was trying to do my best to hyperlink the concepts. You want to? So this is a hip hop rap battle on suprahuman wisdom versus superhuman intelligence. Seeing a study beyond time, candlelight code and constitution. The beat drops.
I wrote the machine that cracked Enigma. Now we train models to decode your dogma. They think fast, act vast, scale to the sky. Why ask, should we, when we know how high?
But speed ain't virtue, and power ain't peace. Unchecked force don't make justice increase. You want models that rule with no moral arrest? Superhuman brains, but no soul in their chest.
We can't halt the climb. The pressure's too tight. Markets reward what's fast, not what's right. Evolutionary pressure favors those who optimize, even if they leave our values vaporized.
Then we, the people, must build something wiser. Suprahuman wisdom, a moral stabilizer. No one mind can match the machine's might, but together, discernment can ignite the right.
You mean slow counsel and ancient prayer? The model's already 10 moves ahead. Beware. This ain't parchment and plows, it's bytes and code. Are you sure slow wisdom can shoulder that load?
It's not about slowness, but anti-fragility. Context that learns through pain and humility. Disagreement, dissent, reflection, reform. That's how wisdom survives the storm.
But systems evolve towards whatever survives.
SHI, superhuman intelligence.
Lost, you got me lost. Superhuman intelligence will outscale your ethical hives.
Unless the hive learns to discern and restrain, to bind AI with justice, not just a chain. No tyrants, no oracles, no techno king. Just people aligned by a covenantal ring.
So, no algorithm rules from a throne up high, just suprahuman wisdom that refuses to lie?
Exactly. The end ain't control or collapse. It's context engineering designed to hold the gaps. Where tension refines and systems confess, only wisdom can govern intelligence's success. Nice job, Tom. Thank you.
Well, did you write that?
I mean, that was ChatGPT out of a series of arguments I
ChatGPT
had.
wrote it. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. But still, I like it. I hope to get a copy
Yeah, I'll put that in the
sent.
chat.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what Ernest thought of it.
uh, interesting. I can't say that I understood it. I will have to read it a couple of more times to see. But so it's like the AI,
That's two of us. That's two of us, Ernest.
the
But
AI,
still, it provokes you into reading and thinking and wondering what is in there.
Yeah, and it
yeah.
was definitely a lot more interesting than the original prose version I wrote beforehand. It's like, okay, I don't want to read this. Could you turn it into a rap battle for me?
Mm.
and it was, and I think this is the point I'm making is, if it's going to take us, a year to define one paragraph, the world's going to move on, right? Is that we can't pretend that the world isn't changing. The world is
Well,
moving faster.
by
And
world, by world, you're talking about for-profit corporations,
no,
governments
let,
that
let's
are not.
let, let,
Go-
let's talk about so this the situation of my face. Like I have my son is graduating from high school in a year, right? He is moving into musical theater, the least technologically impacted industry that I know of, right? But even for him, like, well, he wants to make a living, right? He wants to get an education. He needs to interact with universities and philanthropies and educational systems. And, you know, I have to ask the question, like, he's got to write a dozen essays for these things. Do we use AI to help with that? Do I spend time worrying about that? Should I be worrying about something else? Like, regardless of corporations and governments, we're in a world that depends on written words and images, right? To communicate value, to do things. And if you want to have an impact on the culture, I mean, you could go be with the Amish, right? That is an option. Let's stay in the 1850s and selectively adopt technology because we want to preserve a kind of culture. Or we can ask the question, do we want to change the world? Do we want to have an impact on people? Do we just want to be able to live our lives with the people we love in a way that isn't destroyed by people doing stuff that ruins everything for the rest of us?
Yes, I to
Okay,
that I
so
think yes,
right. So the
but
question is, right.
but
So the challenge, yeah, okay, go ahead, Ernest.
but I want a more pure option. Like, yes, I need to go to work and I need to, follow the rules and I do that. But in my time, when I'm like, I just want to meditate or get close to people, I don't want any of those companies looking at what I'm doing. I want my data to be just my data.
Right, and doesn't Tom's son have a company that sells a solid pod where you could store all your data with your own control if you don't want to set one up
Absolutely.
yourself? So you can do
Uh,
all those things. Right. Here's the point,
but
Ernest. You first of
but
all,
I'm telling you, I want corporations out of it.
so
No
do you want
corporations at all.
buy it?
I
Right,
want
but
to
you want to spend no money and put no effort into it to building it
no, I
yourself.
want to put
That's
the
the
effort.
problem.
I want to put the effort and get others
So
to help.
so
Just like open source software, just like
there's a ton of open source software, right? All the solid stuff. ActivityPod we found that there's a company, ActivityPod, it's an open source project.
yeah, but
You can
okay,
run all these yourself.
it's a corporation. Somebody can
What?
buy it and
No, no,
and
no, no,
change
no.
it.
That was an open source solution. You could download the open source yourself, run it on your machine, run it on your own server locally.
Okay, well,
Okay,
that's what I'm talking about.
right?
Yes.
But yeah, so we could do all that. The problem, of course, is that uh, you have to have you can do it with Urbit today, right? It's this weird thing. You own all your data. It's all in an encrypted thing with your private key. No one else can see it.
Mm.
The problem is that nobody wants to use it, and therefore you
Well,
haven't done it, right?
and if you then you have to find people who share those values and
Right. So
together.
right. So here's the thing that I'm arguing, Ernest, is that, and this is the whole point of the rap battle, is that the hard part is not the technology. The hard part is not the language. The hard part is finding people that you actually want to connect with, and then figuring out what it is that you want. I mean, listen to the story of our YouTube channel. The thing that you want to do together that you can actually accomplish, right? And at one point, you sounded like you were getting some traction off a Datocracy mailing list, and we thought you could do something with that, but that seems to have stalled, and I don't know why.
Well, it's because all this other stuff, like we have to build it on top of all these corporate platforms, and
No,
that
you don't. You don't. Tell me one thing you want to build that would actually get people to do something that you are blocked by corporations, and we will solve that for you.
No, corporations don't block me. They snoop on what I'm doing. Palantir, they snoop on everything I do, and so that they can provide that data to the government to do who knows what.
So what do you want to? So
I want government and corporations out of.
Sorry, what is it the thing you want to do? I mean, if you run something, okay, are you saying that if you're like what? I mean, obviously this is a public channel; everyone in the world is seeing it. If you don't want to say it publicly, fine, we can go off of YouTube.
Mhm.
I mean, first of all, I don't think anybody cares what we do yet. If we get to the world where someone thought it was worthwhile to snoop on us, that would be a huge amount of success.
Mhm.
But so seriously, is there something you want to do that you're being blocked because you can't think of a way to do it that no one will snoop on you?
I just want to have privacy.
Okay, well, you can have all the privacy you want sitting in your own machine when you're disconnected from the internet, right?
Mhm.
But what's stopping you?
Well, actually, I don't know that I can do that. Like people can hack my laptop. People can install software that watches what I'm doing.
So you have a notebook and paper.
That's one way to do that.
Okay, but the point is that the thing that I'm hearing though was that, okay, by yourself you can do.
Example, and we talked about this example, like a mother talking to her daughter in Facebook Messenger, and they talk about abortion. Then some government agent goes to the house and arrests them. That is why I'm motivated for this.
Okay, so fine. That's a reason to not use Facebook.
Or
right?
any corporate system, because
okay, well, fine. I mean, but like there are plenty of non-corporate systems that run over the internet that you could use.
I know people can use Tails, the software, the operating.
You're right. And like I said, if that's the thing that's blocking you, like I have a hard time believing that that's the thing that's blocking you from actually creating something.
I'm not blocked. I want to provide an option. I want.
But here's the question: what is the thing you want to do that provides options? Because no one's going to use your option for the sake of their knowledge. They're going to, if they want to join you in doing something useful. What's the thing you want to do that's the reason for the three of us to jump on some system and build it?
Protect myself from people who want to erase history, people who are removing people from this Smithsonian because they're black or they're women. I want to protect society from that. like, Trump thinks,
okay, let's take a moment here. You're not going to be able to protect everybody from everything right away unless you have a lot more people on your side.
Little by little.
Okay, so pick one thing. What is one thing that you want to be able to do?
Okay, let's say absolutely private communication with no government snooping, no ads, no corporate anything.
I mean, PGP, email, would that be sufficient as a starting point?
No, because email is controlled by all this.
PGP, do you even know what PGP does?
Yeah, is the encryption communication system.
Right. So as long as you have your keys and you only share if you only get private keys from people you trust, that's what PGP does. You can send an email with where you control the level of security and encryption.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a thing. Right? You don't have a centralized control, which means you have to manage all of that yourself, but that's the whole point. That's why it's PGP.
And
right?
Make that easier.
So, right, okay. But so first of all, here's the thing, Ernest. You want the world to work the way you. So let's figure out the thing that you want to do, and then if it's hard, let's figure out why. Anyway, I have a 2:00 meeting. I forgot to run, but let's make that. So we make that our challenge to see if we can get PGP set up for the three of us in email. and then you'll actually tell us what it is you think without the government snooping in.
I mean, it's not. It's nothing to. It's just privacy. It's not. I'm not going to do anything illegal. It's just.
Right, I understand, but like if that's the thing that you feel is blocking you that you can't communicate privately, let's try PGP then. All right,
All right.
and see if we can get that working because it's a lot easier than it used to be. It's just a hassle, but if we can do it, then we don't. You have one less excuse. All right.
Okay.
All right.